Today's discussion is all about exponents. Exponents are essentially the number of times a base is multiplied by itself. It's a manner in which large numbers are expressed into smaller ones. So, without further ado, let's begin. As mentioned, there's two components, a base and the power that is raised to or its property. For this example, we have 2 raised to the third power, 2 being the base and 3 being its power or its property. So, 2 to the third power means that 2 is multiplied by itself 3 times. So that's 2 times 2, which is 4. And moreover, it's 4 times 2, which is going to be 8. Therefore, 2 raised to the third power is equals to 8. Now let's have another example. Our next example is going to be 4 raised to the third power. So now this is going to be 4 multiplied by itself 3 times. So 4 times 4 times 4. Now 4 times 4 is going to be 16. And again, 16 multiplied by 4 is going to be 64. Therefore, 4 raised to the third power is equals to 64. Now that is the general concept of exponents. So let's actually try it with a bigger number, right? So let's use 10 for our base. 10 raised to the fifth power. That's going to be 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, and then another one times 10. So first, 10 multiplied to 10 is going to be 100. And 100 multiplied to 10 is going to be 1000. Next, it's going to be 1000 multiplied to 10 again, which is 10,000. And last is going to be the fifth tenth, so it's 10 multiplied to 10,000, which is 100,000. Therefore, 10 raised to the fifth power equals 100,000. Now that is how exponents work. You take a base and multiply it by itself as many times as indicated by its exponents. Now, with exponents, there are also properties, which is essentially the laws or rules that it follows. In this video, I will discuss only 3, however, there are 7 in total. Now, for the first one I will discuss is going to be the zero property. This rule, zero property, says that any number raised to the power of 0 is going to be equal to 1. Therefore, any number with the exponent 0 is 1. 2 raised to 0 is equals to 1. 10 raised to 0 equals 1. 100 raised to 0 equals 1. And that's the zero property, which is, to summarize it all, any number with an exponent of 0 is equals 1. Now let's move forward to the next property that I will be discussing. This is the product property, which tackles multiplication of exponents with the same base. This rule states that in multiplying any exponent with the same base, you simply have to add its exponents. As such, it's basically if x raised to n is multiplied to x raised to m, then it would just result into x raised to n plus m. To get a better grasp, let's try using an example. So let's have 10 raised to the third power multiplied to 10 raised to the second power, which is, as per the rule, 10 raised to 3 plus 2, which then becomes 10 raised to the fifth power. To further understand why this rule is processed like this, let's lay out the exponents. So 10 to the third power is 10 multiplied to 10 multiplied to 10. And 10 raised to the second power is 10 times 10. Now you might have realized it, but you just basically multiplied 10 times 10 times 10 with 10 times 10, which pretty much is just 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, right? And what is our rule of exponent? You multiply its base by the number indicated by its exponent. So this is also just 10 raised to the fifth power. And that's product property. If you're multiplying two bases that are the same, you just add their exponents. Now let's move forward to the next property. Now this next property is called the quotient property or the quotient rule, which tackles the division of exponents with the same basis. This rule is extremely similar with the product property, except you replace multiplication with division and you replace addition with subtraction. Therefore, if two exponents with the same base are divided, you simply subtract their exponents. So for example, let's have 10 raised to the 5th power divided by 10 raised to the 2nd power. You simply do 10 raised to 5 minus 2, which becomes 10 raised to the 3rd power. As you can see, it really is the same yet also the opposite of the product property. And so similarly with the product property, let's also discuss or look further into the process why this rule is followed. So let's lay out the exponents. 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, that's 10 raised to the 5th power, all over 10 raised to the 2nd power, which is 10 multiplied to 10. Now if you look closely, there is 10 times 10 as the denominator, and there are 10 times 10 as numerators. So we can cancel out 2 of those numerators, leaving us with only 3 10s multiplied by each other, which is 10 times 10 times 10, or if expressed in an exponent form, it's going to be 10 raised to the 3rd power. Now this concludes the discussion for exponents, wherein we discussed the general concept of exponents and 3 of its properties, which are zero property, product property, and quotient property. I hope you learned a lot, and thank you very much for watching.